Hey everyone, just wanted to go ahead and actually talk a little bit more in depth about an article that was recently posted on Screw Attack and that we've shared on our like page. It's got me really excited, and I just wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit more about it and share some points and some interesting things that got my mind revved up a little bit. But basically, it's a recent interview that was done with Square Enix's president Yosuke Matsuda, in which he basically states that the company is going back to its roots. And he's talking about this in regards to lessons that are learned, he says, with games like Hitman Absolution and the recent success of Bravely Default. Now, he basically said that when they've developed console games with a worldwide premise, he says we lost our focus. And not only did they end up being games that weren't for the Japanese, but they ended up being incomplete titles that weren't even for a global audience. And before I go ahead and get into the main body of this whole entire video and my thoughts on the article, something very interesting that was actually placed in the article, and I don't know if it was just the author who decided to go ahead and put that in there and just express that terminology, or if Mr. Matsuda himself actually expressed this. But it says here, in regards to the RPG series, he hinted that this would mean a stronger emphasis towards core JRPG elements, since it caters to both their own strengths and the Japanese market overall. And of course, he's talking a little bit more about making games that are in their classic vein, and just after enjoying the success or recent success of Bravely Default. But I found it very interesting that they would refer to JRPGs and categorize it as such. Again, very interesting to see that in the actual article. Anyhow, let's get into the mix about what this video is really about. And what it's about is the fact that something is going on here that is not commonly taking place when it comes to stuff you hear about when it comes to production studios, video game production studios, and the like. Basically, it's the president of Square Enix, the RPG forefront for a lot of us, or for a lot of people who've been playing video games for a while, is basically coming right out and saying, hey, you know what? We haven't been doing so hot lately. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick with what we know, and we're just going to start pumping out fantastic games and working towards our own strengths. And I personally find that to be fantastic. Why? A lot of times when you hear from a studio or you hear from a game developer, they're always talking about their next big title. Oh, we're going to be making this game, and it's going to be like this, and it's going to have these elements. You'll be able to run faster, jump higher, swim deeper. Who knows? You'll be able to do lots of stuff we can't even think of yet. But this guy is basically going out on a limb and saying, hey, you know what? We're just going to start making games that are what you know us for. And I'm really excited about that, because when Square Enix, back in the 90s, back when I was a kid, these were two separate companies. And what I knew them for was for RPGs. They made fantastic RPGs. I mean, Enix made the excellent Illusions of Gaia, which I beat 20 times over. They made Star Ocean. They made Dragon's Quest, or Dragon Warrior as it was initially brought over here to the States, and Squaresoft, which everyone knows they brought Final Fantasy, Parasite Eve. I like Parasite Eve Part 1 and 2. We're not going to talk about Part 3. I'm not going to mention it. Leave it alone. And of course, Secret of Mana. And for the US side, the only game, Secret of Evermore. So when these two giants back some years ago got together, I said, oh, it's over. It's over. They're going to start pumping out these fantastic RPGs. They're going to start making these really unique games. And they did for a period of time, and then I don't really know what's been going on recently. It's like they can't get their bearings. They can't find out what to do. They're either bringing out Final Fantasy anthologies, or they're just trying to present the Final Fantasy series in a completely different way. Some has been fantastic, some has not. And I'll get a little bit more into detail about that, but I can understand their point of view and what's really going on here. There's certain things that they're trying out on a smaller scale, and then for some odd reason, when they're getting into the console market, into the PC market, when they're going large scale, they seem to be missing the mark. Sometimes vastly, sometimes not so much. I would tend to defer with Mr. Matsuda when he cites that he learned lessons from Absolution, because to me, Absolution wasn't in recent memory really the worst thing they've ever done. I mean, some of you may disagree with me, but Absolution really wasn't that terrible in my mind. Sure, we waited about 6 years to go ahead and get into a new Hitman game. We didn't get anything since Blood Money, and we had high expectations. I personally waited a little bit, so I didn't have to play the bug-riddled version of Hitman when it came out, which shows why it's worth it to sometimes wait for a game to settle down a little bit, and it's not always best to get it on launch date. But anyhow, that's more of an opinion and an insight on my part. But I really didn't think that in recent memory that was the worst Square Enix has done. I can definitely tell you that among those top failures was Final Fantasy All the Bravest. That was not even a game. It was an extremely expensive app. But moving forward from there, we'll take, for example, the Final Fantasy 13 series, or Final Fantasy 13 moving forward in the Final Fantasy series. I'm very interested to know what Square Enix was thinking when they decided to go ahead and remove all the elements that we really enjoyed within the Final Fantasy series: exploration, side quests, towns, a whole entire map to go ahead and just discover, and said, nope. Sure, we've got 12 other games that have done pretty well. Some of them have done amazing, and we have a core audience that really loves this and has brought us into the limelight because of these games. No, forget all that. We're just going to make a game about battles. Battle after battle after battle. I didn't even finish Final Fantasy 13. I started playing it, and I said, yeah, what is this? Final Fantasy 13, the hallway. It never ends. I'll eventually finish it someday, but it's not going to be anytime soon. I know that they made a sequel to it, which was a little bit more like the classic Final Fantasy that we've come to know and love, but still, those to me are more vivid examples of where Square Enix missed the mark and was trying to appeal to. I don't know who they were trying to appeal, honestly speaking, but it wasn't us. Moving forward on that, production studios have to pour in a lot more money when they come to their console games and their big AAA titles. So I understand a lot of this whole idea of downloadable content and streaming and so forth. I personally, though, am of the mindset that I like to own my content. I don't really necessarily like the cloud. It's nice. It has its functions in my mind. And for a lot of indie developers, downloadable content only is great. It works. But I like to feel like I actually own my games. I don't like to feel that I've paid for permission to play them only. So, but I want to go ahead and just say that the fan in me or the kid in me that remembers the heyday of the RPGs back on the Super Nintendo is really excited to hear this news, and I really think that we can finally get the best of both worlds now. We can finally get those fun and amazing games that we got when we were growing up, and how we used to thumb through those strategy guides and look through those booklets and go, man, if it could look like this would just be the icing on the cake. We now have the technology to do that, and games like Bravely Default have shown that we can. So I can't wait. To me, that's what this article is talking about, and I really hope that Square Enix can pull it together and we can start getting those games that we have long waited for. Who knows? Maybe they'll just take all of their classic franchises that a lot of us haven't even had the chance to play, and they'll just remake them in HD. Who knows? In any case, wanted to share that with you guys. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and in the meantime, the hunt is on. Take care. Kiss, give me a kiss. Mwah.